What kinds of advice or I don't know, what kinds of things do you say to someone like that who comes to you and says, I'm married to a woman, been gay my whole life, I'm in hiding about it, you're the only one who knows, things like that. Like, how do you, because we get that a lot too, and I don't really even know how to, because we're that place, and you are too, in a different way. We're both those places of, like, these oases of like, they show us that other side, they don't show us that family side that they have with their wife or whatnot. So,
it's tricky, because I think sometimes we feel like we have a responsibility to the other person on the other end, right? Because we talk a lot about consent and risk and how that intersects with consent. So how are other people being impacted by the non-consensual extramarital sex you're having? I think that's a concern we often have. I think for me as a therapist, I have to remind myself that when I'm having a moral internal panic about something, I'm not able to support the person that's in front of me. The person in front of me is navigating something that's complicated, and the only way that they can make good decisions is if they feel heard and able to talk. Wow. So if I become moralistic, I shut down the conversation, right? So for me, it's more like, that sounds really tough. You're living in basically two worlds. Yeah. How do you manage the guilt of that? That must weigh on you, you know? Yep. And if you don't experience any guilt, I would say, wow, you've learned to really compartmentalize. That must come at a cost. What's the cost of that?
Oh, that's a great question.
Good point. It's twofold.
Yeah, what is the cost of, because there are definitely aspects of my life where, I'm doing certain things that I used to feel bad about, don't feel bad about anymore. What is the cost of like whatever, lowering that morality for my own self? That's an interesting question.
So on that note, I think I'm just going, all right, what about myself? All right, I think I needed to separate from just the idea of my family. I needed to put my family on the side and go, who am I without them? Without them anywhere in my reality, my world, who am I? Yeah. That's when I think I started to really discover who and what I wanted to be, and that I was not in harmony with what they wanted me to be. And that as I started to incorporate, I made the decision that I needed to start working on this version of myself that was more me and who I wanted to be. And then I realized I was spending less time with, like, my family,
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So what you essentially did was you shifted your social networks. You kind of individuated or emancipated yourself so that you're surrounded by people where you get rewarded for being who you want to be. And so what we're talking about here is people who are really struggling with having a foot in two worlds, right? Because they really do love their families. They are committed to their partners. They care about their kids. Definitely. They just haven't been given the option to bridge the gap, right? They've had to compartmentalize, and it's a very sophisticated defense mechanism. But it does, like, some things are missing though, right? So what's needed now moving forward is we know that cross-culturally across the world, same-sex sexual behavior is 100% completely normal.
Every culture experiences it. Yep.
Yeah, and so we might have different ways of talking about it, and I love to honor that, because cross-culturally people talk about gender in different ways. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah. But I think we also have to just, like, my approach to a lot of, like, when people are like, oh, how can you be Muslim and gay or have sex and all this stuff? I'm like, look, being gay is normal, and who you're attracted to is normal, and cross-culturally that's happening everywhere in the world. And so if we're going to look at religions that people seem to be gravitating toward all over the world, some kind of spirituality, I think outlawing or stigmatizing something that feels very natural to people, have we seen it do any good? Because if we have, we can keep doing it. But I don't think we've seen any good come of it, right? You're telling me as adult performers, and I'm telling you as a social worker and a therapist, that we talk to people who are really struggling, right? Because they have to keep part of their life a secret, and they're not able to make it go away. So stigmatizing it's not helping.
Right. And I've even had that problem. That's why I quit teaching. I wasn't able to to get, I mean, I was able to for a while there, get to a place where I could do this job and then I could go and tutor kids. But that wasn't feeling good. It wasn't, you know, and I think that was what he was saying. It's like, we don't have a relationship with our families because it didn't, so we aren't actually a foot in both worlds. And anytime I have been in that position, it's been very difficult to navigate. And yeah, I actually personally have gone the way of like one or the other every time I find those conflicts, but some people don't. Some people do just maintain those two forever and ever and ever. And, you know, that is a very interesting, you know, place to examine yourself from if you're there, because how are you managing that? Because yeah, there's gonna be moments when there's conflicts of interest, you know, where you're like, oh shoot, don't look at my phone, don't open this, don't do that, don't come in here, don't that. So personally for us, it's been better to just be like out in the open. If you like us, you like us. If you don't, you don't. If we lose people, we lose people. But that's not the choice that everyone makes, you know.
No, totally. And I think I'm in the same boat as you. Even though I'm not creating porn, I'm very out in terms of, you know, as a gay man, I'm like, oh, I'm a social worker and a therapist and I'm on Chatterbait. But I think for us to be able to do that, it's important to recognize that we have a certain level of privilege, you know? We don't, like we are thinking, like we've got 150 people in this room right now, you know, in this tower. So we've got people, we can rely on people cheering for us and supporting us without like the huge costs that other people might be faced with for exploring sexuality or talking about sexuality.
Right.
Yeah.
But none of us have